Patrick McNeil back here with you at the intermission. Time now for one of our Around the CHL segments where we are joined by second-year voice of the Portland Winterhawks, Nick Marek, as we look at the U.S. division in the WHL featuring his Winterhawks, the Everett Silvertips, Spokane Chiefs, Tri-City Americans, and Seattle Thunderbirds. Nick, who are the favorites to win this division this season?
Patrick, the U.S. division is pretty much up in air. I think the favorites most likely going in would be Spokane Chiefs with the addition of Ty Smith returning from the NHL. He was through the Devils at training camp, ultimately coming back to Spokane. Their forward core is very deep. They have about 3 good lines that are returning from last year. All could score. A little bit more veteran presence than that of the Winterhawks or even the Everett Silvertips right now. So they're kind of in that win now mentality. And I think everybody in Spokane knows that as well. So they're making pushes to repeat as U.S. Division champions, at least in the playoffs. Last year was Everett Silvertips taking the crown in the regular season, but Spokane got hot in the end of the year, and they're trying to carry that on into the postseason for another big run. The Western Conference in the WHL is kind of a coin flip, to be honest, between U.S. Division, BC Division teams. There's a lot of competition throughout.
You mentioned Ty Smith. I wanted to touch on the World Junior team for Canada for the last year. You have Ty Smith, draft pick of New Jersey, plays for Spokane, and Cody Glass, who since graduated to the Vegas Golden Knights, that you would have seen very much playing for Portland. To tell us a little bit about those two players, how they looked at the junior rank and continue to look in the case of Smith.
They're both just game changers. It's one of those where the coaches have to make a game plan specifically for a Ty Smith or for a Cody Glass. Certainly from a broadcast standpoint, and you could tell there's a noticeable difference when those two take the ice. They're just at that much different of a level and that much higher of a compete level that they really stand out. So when Cody Glass would play for Portland, whether it was penalty kill, top line, or top line PK, or running 28 minutes a game, coaches had to kind of adjust for that, and they had to plan accordingly and figure out how to shut down that line while also making sure they didn't take damage in the other line. So when you have a player that's so dynamic like those two, it just really elevates the overall team play and kind of allows the other lines to step up and play different roles because there's so much attention on those two. I think Ty Smith in his debut had 2 goals and an assist, so he picked up right where he left off. I know we aren't talking about it today, but it's the same to be said for Dylan Cousins, who was returned the 7th overall pick, went back to the Lethbridge Hurricanes for another season in the WHL, and within the first 3 games, he put up 8 points. Those guys just kind of operate at a different level, and especially once they come back from an NHL training camp, they're able to take some of those things with them, and then you're going to see the numbers kind of explode in the following season if they come back to juniors.
Fair to say then, I guess, with the exception of the time that he's going to be spending likely at the World Juniors for Team Canada, Ty Smith, a very likely candidate to lead defenseman in scoring in the WHL this year.
Oh, absolutely. I think the only thing that might hinder him is Bowen Byram just up the road in Vancouver. Not too shabby of a draft pick himself, going in the top 5 over to Colorado last past summer. Those two are pretty much going to run the ship in the Western Conference, and probably be a neck-and-neck race for most of the year to see who's going to win the Western Conference WHL Defenseman of the Year. And then I'm assuming one of those two will probably be the front runner as well to win the overall award in the league. It's firepower there for Ty Smith. I think teams are going to plan accordingly. The Winterhawks have yet to face them. The Tri-City Americans got a first taste of them a little bit ago. There's just a lot of weapons, a lot of young, up-and-coming draft prospects as well in the Western Hockey League, specifically in the U.S. division. It's a very strong division. This year, maybe a little bit more balanced in terms of there's not going to be that one team like the Everett Silvertips from a year ago that was so top-heavy that they were pretty much expected to run away with it. Even though the Portland Winterhawks and Spokane Chiefs tried to catch them a season ago, everyone's kind of on an even playing field. I think Spokane's still the favorite, but from the Portland Winterhawks side, there's 5 players listed on the NHL Central Scouting Players to Watch list, including 3 of them that are B-ranked prospect that you'll see in the 2nd and 3rd round of this summer's NHL draft. So a lot of potential throughout the lineup, a lot of youth kind of coming through, especially with Portland, Seattle, and Tri-City. So it's going to make for a really interesting division and a really interesting run.
But wanted to step aside and look at another topic. I've talked about people out west. Seattle coming into the National Hockey League, is that a net positive, do you think, for interest in the Pacific Northwest when it comes to the junior product?
I think it has to be. Even for myself, a little story here, how much buzz it had when I was still working hockey in Texas. I have family ties through my wife up in Seattle, but we already put a down payment down for season tickets when I was in Texas. And everybody heard the stories how everything sold within the first day. Whatever it was, the 50,000 tickets they put on hold went in a snap of a finger. So the buzz in the Pacific Northwest is certainly very high. I think everybody from a community standpoint wants that team to succeed. It might not be the Vegas Golden Knights in terms of that success, because teams will figure out what the Golden Knights did and then make sure they don't do that same thing for Seattle. But this is a good Seattle franchise that's already getting the pieces together. Just speaking with everyone up in Washington through your Everett's and Spokane and Tri-City and Seattle's, they're excited for it. They think this is going to grow the brand of hockey. I would tend to agree with that. I think midget hockey is going to take a big boost as well throughout the Pacific Northwest and the adjacent territories. But one thing that they did that's going to be beneficial as well is to see that the NHL franchise is working with these junior markets. They decided to send their AHL team down in Southern California. They had options to go to Spokane. There was Tacoma being talked about. There was Idaho being talked about as well. Even Portland kind of had a couple rumors buzzing early on, but they wanted to avoid the WHL markets because they're already kind of set in place and they respect what this league has to offer as well. So I think there's going to be a really good relationship there between the Western Hockey League and the NHL Expansion Club in Seattle once it comes in 2021.
And that was part one of our conversation looking at the U.S. division of the WHL with Nick Marek, the voice of the Portland Winterhawks. The division also includes the Everett Silvertips, Spokane Chiefs, Seattle Thunderbirds, and Tri-City Americans. We'll hear part two tomorrow. You're listening to the Intermission Eagles and 4 We're here at Center 200 on Carstar, Cape Breton Eagles Hockey, 1270 CJCB.